The Kenneth L Show live, WPPM 106.5 Philly. We are here today to do what we do each and every week, and that's bring you a great show. I'm excited about the show today for a lot of different reasons. And I just want you to bear with us. I'm getting some background noise here today, but we'll get that worked out as well. But excited to be here today for a lot of different reasons. Um, we're just going to do what we do, man. We're going to have a great show today. We have an amazing guest. Her name is Brenda Mariah, I believe, out of Phoenix. Yeah, out of Arizona. She's a friend of the show. I've had her on some other platforms before. She is simply amazing. So looking forward to having her here today and talking to us about what's going on in the world. And for us, a lot of the things that are going on are a little crazy right now. I was doing some research over the weekend because that's what I do to get ready for this show. And I came across a couple articles, and some of the articles were referencing the job report. And I spoke about that last week. It's getting a little crazy out here. We're losing a lot of jobs in the workplace. But something that really stuck to me that I came across this week was the report that 300,000 Black women have left the workplace in the past 3 months. And I wanted to bring Brenda on specifically to speak about that. I know she does some outplacement. It's the Kenneth L Show. We're all about resources. We're all about conversations. We're all about career, community. This is the work we do each and every Monday. So thank you for joining us. We're excited. All right. So listen, if you didn't hear about it, there's an article out here on Forbes from Janice Gass. I'm also a friend of the family, friend of the show. But she wrote an article for Forbes, and she was speaking about this 300,000 Black women leaving the workplace. I also saw another article on MSNBC on their platform speaking about it. Both had really interesting points about why this is taking place, how this is taking place, and that this kind of isn't really an accident. So I'm excited to learn a little more about what Brenda has to say about that. All right. Some disturbing trends going on in the workplace. Jobs are literally disappearing from the workplace as well, right? Now, if you're just looking at unemployment rates, it's at 4.2, a little up from 4.1. Not a big thing, right? But if you start factoring in the numbers, I guess over the last 3 months, we're about 278,000 jobs that weren't created in the workspace. So with that being said, that's a concern for a lot of us. I'm a recruiter, as I mentioned, always a concern for me when jobs aren't coming into the space. But even if you're not looking at it from that perspective, if you're just looking at it from an opportunity standpoint, that's concerning because that impacts everything, right? If people aren't working, if people aren't finding opportunities, then even if you're just looking at general GDP, things are going to start getting really tight. So trying to take a look at that, maybe a deeper dive, and we'll speak to Brenda a little more about this, right? So headlines alone, right? 73,000 jobs in July. That's how many were created. That's a miss in comparison to expectations, right? I mentioned that the unemployment rate ticked up just slightly to 4.2. There were some revisions that factored into the downward situation in the earlier months. We got about 258,000 fewer jobs than first reported. Concerning, right? And job participation rate, something that I always look at. And, if you're talking about that, it's at 62.2. So fewer people are working or even looking for work. That's concerning. And by sector, healthcare jobs were added, but we saw losses in the federal government, Doge, right? And then there's also a weakness in manufacturing, probably tariffs. You get the picture I'm painting here, right? But the bigger picture is that Wall Street is betting that the Fed Reserve will cut interest rates in September. So we'll see how that plays out. So speaking of playing out, I really like to play this show out by me talking for about 5 minutes and then inviting my guest to the stage. So with that being said, it's probably about time that I bring Brenda Mariah to the stage. Brenda, what is good? How's everything going?
Okay, I can barely hear you. You're there. I barely, but if I can work with that.
So let's talk. So what's good? Tell our audience about yourself.
Okay. Well, hey everybody. Brenda Mariah here. I am I enjoy it. I specialize working with really with manufacturing organizations preparing for layoff. And so also providing that emotional and practical strategic support for those in the throes of transition. And so this is a hard moment when folks are faced with uncertainty left and right, when so many kind of foundational, fundamental sectors are struggling. It can be really unnerving for the job seekers, especially the average job seeker, to kind of know what the next step is going to look like. And so, folks like me are around to really help folks put what one foot in front of the other.
You know, you're
Uh,
So you're doing some you're doing some really important work out here, and we appreciate all of that.
and I'm just wondering, what are you seeing? Like, what are your thoughts about what's happening out here?
you know, I think I see a lot of organizations gambling on AI. I'm really hoping that that's their salvation. Um, and I think they're missing the bigger point. I think a lot of those organizations who are really deeply rooted and deeply ingrained in capitalism are missing out on the fact that the more and more you displace people from their high paying roles and important positions and thinking positions, you're actually removing folks from purchasing power. So you will ultimately suffer um, due to your own kind of greed or um, really lack of foresight. And so I am seeing folks taking significantly longer to land in equal or even sometimes lesser positions because that's just what's available. And so I want to make sure I'm kind of sounding an alarm here that we really are missing the opportunity to engage people and leverage AI as opposed to completely relying and betting on AI as a solution.
So, so understanding what's happening here, and can you hear me? I know
I
I'm
can.
okay. Perfect. Understanding what's happening here with the 300,000 women, Black women, that have basically, I don't want to say disappeared from the workforce, but are not currently in the workforce, and this has happened over the past 3 months. Is it all right? A lot of people are saying government jobs. A lot of people are saying DEI. What else is happening out here that's causing this type of disruption?
We're going to keep it real here because I know that's how you do. Um, and the truth behind it from my perspective is unfortunately so many people believe particularly Black women but women as a whole to be dispensable, to be easy targets. Um, and I think I do a lot of parallels with like dating and job search because there is so much overlap in those two worlds. And so I think a lot about like male loneliness epidemic, and they're lashing out at the easy targets, right? And so, but anybody who thinks that Black women are easy targets have never met a Black woman. And so, like, welcome to 2025. Let them find out. This is truly a distortion, I think, right now of how so many folks in the manosphere, the red pilosphere, and a lot of those kinds of spaces are viewing DEI as a negative as opposed to a beneficial, positive thing that can uplift a workforce. Think about how many times you look at a company culture poster and nobody looks like you. And when I see that, it disrupts something within me. It's like I don't want to be there. I look at movie posters and they still, no one looks like me. Why is that so? In the year of our Lord 2025, there are still things being created that would purposely and intentionally exclude somebody just because they look like me or you. Absolutely not. So we're missing the mark. This is a distortion of DEI. And, in some many sense, blaming it on AI can be a little bit of a misdirect. But I think that I think that a lot of folks are going to find out, unfortunately, the hard way. Oh, I've lost you again.
So it's interesting understanding the work that you do, and I want to back up a little to speak about some of that. I know that you, you're really active out here in this space, helping people with outplacement, helping people with resumes, helping people get job ready. Talk to us a little bit about you, the work you're doing out here, and then we'll kind of take a deeper dive back into that conversation about the 300,000.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So a lot of times organizations will reach out because they know that there's a layoff coming. Like they've dissected their business analytics and it's just unavoidable. It's just an inconvenient truth and we have to face the reality. So they'll reach out and, how do I go about this? So oftentimes it will actually provide guidance on how to roll out the notifications so that it's not done very poorly. I just had a conversation yesterday about a notification that was done very poorly. Like the director of the organization wasn't informed that their whole team was being affected. How could this be? So first and foremost, they need a guidance and a strategic partner to help them roll out their communication strategy. But then secondly, those folks need an actual tangible transition plan. And so reaching out to Push Career Management, which is my company, we'll sit with folks. We'll sit with folks in a group setting, in a one-on-one setting, provide practical coaching and resume development and LinkedIn profile development and all the pieces and showing them how to show up in today's job search environment, which is different from their, parents' job search situation. A lot of folks haven't had to interview or search for a job in 20 years, and then they woke up and everything changed once they got laid off. And they're struggling. They're trying to figure it out. They're doing their best. They're listening to a lot of advice on the internet. Information is everywhere, but how to apply that information is what's lacking. And so a lot of times folks, they think they're doing their best effort. They're making their best effort. They're doing their best, making their best attempts at trying to bring it all together and build a resume and all these things that they're told they're supposed to do. And they still find themselves floundering. And after months and months of trying, they reach out to somebody like me and say, help. And so I see so many folks on their own struggling and just scraping and struggling to get by. And then ultimately, when they decide to reach out for help, it's a matter of, do I choose to invest in this help? Or do I pay my rent or do I feed my family? And so outplacement, what it does is it takes the financial burden off of the individual person and the company takes account for those fees and those costs so that they can provide that softer landing, the practical coaching and guidance and all the things for the people affected by the layoffs. And that's every nut and bolt and coaching question. And what do I do in this situation? That's every circumstance, familiar or unknown. How do I navigate the situation? How do I talk about my salary? Is it okay if I ask for a higher salary? Like a lot of those things that will come up in the course of a job transition.
All important things, right? As
Yes.
people start to navigate those spaces, and sometimes if you've been employed for, I don't know, let's just even say 5 to 7 years, you may not be sharp in some of those areas, and you'll need someone like you to kind of help. I was reading an article, and Janice Gassam, she had mentioned that there's a networking gap. And I don't know if you're familiar with this theory, but can you talk a little bit about what that's all about? Just the networking gap when it comes to job search.
Oh, how I love that. Now, I'm not familiar with Janice's work, but that term resonates with me so very much. And I think a lot about it when I'm teaching about salary negotiation. The first concept that we talk about is mindset. The fact that so many of us were brought up in a day and age in which you get what you get. You don't throw a fit. Like you're not supposed to ask for more. You're not supposed to take up space. And so we never learned the art of negotiating. We never learned that we were even allowed to negotiate. We never gave ourselves permission. And certainly we never received it from our parents. And so now we find that networking is one of the best avenues into lucrative careers. And it's one of the best avenues to accelerate a job search. And we still have a skills gap. We have a whole bunch of people who are saying, well, I don't deserve, I mean, I don't have the right. I can't ask them for help. Who am I to ask for help? And we still have a mindset lockdown issue. And folks are struggling to understand that it is okay to ask for help, especially once you have earned the right to do so. And so not just showing up in a stranger's inbox and saying, can you circulate my resume and get me a job? But to be able to nurture relationships. I think about you and I, Kenneth, right? We met what, a couple of years ago, and just every so often we'll just do a hey, how you doing? Hey, just checking in. Hey, saw your radio show, looked really great. And you're like, hey, I would love to have you on sometime. How that conversation just kind of naturally happened. And here we are. But this is something that so many people are afraid of because they've never been taught, and they've been taught that it's a bad thing to ask for help, to offer your services. If your services are the solution to my problem, don't ever feel bad about offering that thing. I want to know about it if it's the right solution. Now, the problem comes when people misunderstand how to engage. And so if you engage with a stranger, and again, immediately going for the big ask and going for the jugular, we have a problem. But if you learn and understand how to nurture and build healthy relationships, earn the right to ask, now it just becomes part of life.
And also having people to ask. I think one of the things that she pointed out, Janice, that is that oftentimes our networks are so siloed, and we don't, we need opportunities to connect with other people, and that will allow us to maybe overcome some of the inner office politics, and even identify opportunities maybe before they're actually presented, that we can kind of build our careers on if we do it the right way. But when you don't have people internally that you can lean on to help you kind of navigate those spaces and those opportunities, you're at a complete loss.
Absolutely. We're talking about things like engaging with mentors, even having the courage to ask somebody to be a mentor, having the energy to show up and follow up with your mentor to continue those conversations. But I think I often talk about kind of networking within your four walls, and how dangerous that could be, especially right now. That could be particularly dangerous if the only people that we know are the people that we already know within the four walls where we work. If we're not beginning to become known by other people in our industry spaces as a whole, I'm talking on a national scale, this can be really big missed opportunity. And so can you imagine if everybody in your department, if everybody in your division all of a sudden were deemed not vital for the organization's future success, and everybody was laid off in one fell swoop? Now who's your network? Now who do you contact when you need a new opportunity? And so it is important to become known and to know the other players and entities within your industry. So yes, I plug in and believe in national associations like the National Resume Writers Association, of which I was president last year. This is a big deal. You have to know the players in your industry, and more importantly, they have to know you back. So that means plugging in, volunteering, raising your hand, sit on a committee, show up and do some stuff, get involved, plug into your ERGs at work, right? It doesn't have to be some big, deep thing. I think of networking a lot as meeting people at the grocery store, meeting people who sit next to me on the airplane, and doing more than just we should keep in touch. Because we should keep in touch translates to we will never speak again. But can I connect with you on LinkedIn is a very different statement than we should keep in touch.
Yeah, I hate to keep leaning on that platform, but I have to admit it's paid dividends for me in the work that I do, and I see people on there doing some genuine networking to help others, and I think that's great. I have a question for you, and it's really around solutions and accountability, right? So as we kind of ventured into the conversation about the 300,000 Black women, what do employers, policymakers, or even communities need to do right now to stop this trend and make sure that these women aren't left behind in this economy? It's moving rapidly, it's changing, And it doesn't take long to kind of get lost in this. So, what are your suggestions?
The biggest suggestion actually ends up being the biggest mountain to climb, and that is to actually see women, to see Black women as equal partners, to see them as valuable contributors. Until the day comes when everybody can be seen as a valuable contributor to the organization, if you see them, if you view them as expendable, that's exactly how you'll treat them. And so the very first thing that I would suggest is we have to do some mindset work around just seeing people as valuable contributors. Look, let me tell you something right now. If you look around your workplace and you see Black women, Hispanic women, Native people, if you see folks from Middle East and you're just like, ugh, ugh, ugh. If this is your attitude toward all these different people groups, you have already done yourself a disservice.
Yes.
Because you have now discarded and discounted those impressive contributions from those people. And so the very first thing is to see them as valuable. And now once you see them as valuable, which can be a whole journey all by itself, but once it becomes true, once it becomes reality for you, start to put them in the places that they deserve to be. A lot of those folks are missing out on leadership opportunities because you don't think they should be there because their name is some ethnic sounding name. You think, just because their name is difficult to pronounce or they speak with an accent, you think they don't deserve to be in a position of authority, in a position of high leadership. But if you were to focus, if you were put a little bit of blinder on and you were to focus on their skill and ability to contribute and add value and really analyze the situation and come up with innovative solution, if you did that without looking at their name and their ethnicity and their accent and their weight and all their skin color, all these things, if you did that, you will begin to realize how much further your organization can go, how you have missed out and excluded whole parts of your customer base because you never saw from their point of view. And so I want you to understand you are doing yourselves a disservice by continuing to keep these folks on the outside looking in as opposed to being an integral part of the core vision making machine for your organization.
Well, I definitely want you to understand how much value you added to the Kenneth L. Johnson show today. I sincerely appreciate you and the work that you're doing consistently. I've watched you and I've watched your leadership at the National Resume Writers Association or National Association of Resume Writers. Is that
Resume Writers Association.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
go. And you've just been amazing. So I want to thank you for always supporting the work that we do here. And I'd like for you to share with our audience how they can stay connected to you and your work.
Excellent. Yeah, the best way to stay connected with me, www.pushcareermanagement.com. There you can either schedule a free consultation to just get unstuck and get moving in your own job search journey. Or if you're an employer and you're contemplating layoff, right, you can also visit that same website and check out our outplacement services page, and it'll give you some options as well as to schedule a exploratory conversation, which costs you nothing, but can just open up a whole world of possibility. And one thing I want to leave with your listeners is if you have been laid off, if the layoff machine is coming to your door, negotiate your severance. Don't believe that you just have to take what you're given. Sometimes you can negotiate the keeping the laptop asset. You can negotiate the number of weeks of severance payment. You can negotiate outplacement service. If they didn't outright provide it, ask for it. Ask for it. And so there is a whole lot of things that you all can do. And I want you to be empowered as you move forward.
It's the Kenneth L. Johnson Show live on WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5 FM. We were here today with Brenda Mariah, always delivering when she comes on these platforms. I want to thank you, Brenda, for breaking all of that down. Here's my takeaway, right? The jobs report tells us the economy is slowing. But when you look closer, you see who's carrying the weight of that slowdown. And it's been Black women. 300,000 have left the labor force in just months. And that's not just a statistic, it's families, it's communities, it's the future of our economy. And if we want a stronger jobs report next quarter, we can't afford to leave these people left out and left behind. So, with that being said, I want to acknowledge also, before I close, that some of these women are entrepreneurs now, and it's Black Business Month in August. And I know I'm leaning heavy right now, but I just want to thank some Black businesses that have consistently supported the Kenneth L. Johnson Show. And I'd like to thank Smitten Coaching, The Memo LLC, both of them, Nicole and Minda, were on the show. So thank you for the support. Idea Manufacturer out of New York City, but working with a global footprint. Gina, good looking out. Rock Career Development, and of course, Push Career Management for supporting the work that we do here with the Kenneth L. Johnson Show. Thank you, Brenda. Listen, we're going to do this again next week. I'm really excited. I need to work out some of these sound challenges because next week we'll have Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Editor at Black Enterprise Magazine. It's Black Business Month. Thought he would be somebody great to have on. And also, he's going to speak about an event that they're hosting coming up in October. So I'm extremely excited about that. Once again, it's the Kenneth L. Johnson Show, WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope to see you next week. Take care.